Happy Tuesday. It is Tuesday, May 23rd, the 143rd day of the year. There are 222 days left in this year. Welcome to another edition of Tuesdays with Thom. Jim Brown. Jim Brown was arguably the greatest football player in NFL history. He then became an action figure on movie screens and then a social activist. He died last week. He was 87 years old. Jim Brown was a football player's football player. As an athlete, he was unique. As a running back for the Cleveland Browns in 9 seasons, he never missed a game. He won 3 league MVP awards and an NFL title. His average of nearly 105 rushing yards a game still stands, but that's not the total athletic story. In college at Syracuse, Brown dominated on the football field, lettered in track and basketball, became an All-American in lacrosse, and became one of the greatest to ever play the sport of lacrosse. But statistics only tell a part of the story of Jim Brown. He refused to be boxed in, resisting society's impulse to tell him who and what an athlete could be. When he signed a contract to play a role in the movie The Dirty Dozen and production shooting ran over, he was threatened by the team's owner to get into camp or suffer the consequences, which would be daily fines. Brown considered the threat an insult, so severe that he decided the team and its owner could no longer benefit from his services. In his prime, at 30 years old, he left football and never played another down, and pursued his long career in the movie business as an actor and an activist. In the summer of 1967, he summoned the top black athletes of his era, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Bill Russell, Bobby Mitchell, Kurt Flood, and others in support of Muhammad Ali and his protest of the Vietnam War. Jim Brown was not a perfect man. He had many flaws, many flaws. But in the 1960s in Birmingham, Alabama, a young black boy, namely me, could envision his own life as an athlete, an actor, an author, and in my own words, a free man. Our G-List guest today is A.P. Steadham. A.P. comes from the world of athletics. A.P. is a graduate of the University of Alabama, a fixture at major national sporting events. He is co-host of AP and Kelly, As We See It. Legendary sports figures and personalities are regular guests on his syndicated weekly 1-hour radio broadcast. He is on radio stations in Alabama, Florida, Mississippi, and Hawaii. So we look forward to having that conversation with A.P. Steadham. This edition of Tuesdays with Thom, of course, is sponsored by our partners, the Best Girl Consulting Firm. Best Girl has been providing customized solutions to executive issues for 36 years. For 36 years, that's right. So let's hear from Best Girl.
Best Girl is a consulting firm that provides customized leadership, access and inclusion, public relations, communications, and organizational consulting services. Clients include Fortune 500 companies, utilities, higher education institutions, small businesses, and associations. Best Girl's team of consultants, led by Joyce Gilly-Gossam, Emily Hedrick, and Sean Jones, partners with business and education clients to promote organizational effectiveness, communication, motivation, and leadership, with always an impact on the bottom line. Best Girl's customized consulting services include strategic planning, corporate communication, executive coaching, fundraising, and economic development.
Best Girl creates the solution that fits your needs. So let's get to our roundtable regulars, Barbara Wallace Edwards and Michael Walker. And Barbara is a little bit under the weather, so we're going to start off with you, Michael. Michael, how are you?
Well, good morning, TG. I am doing well this morning, and I hope you are too.
I am doing pretty good. It's a good morning. So what's going on in your world?
Well, one thing I want to mention to everybody, and this is just a warning, something to be careful of. Here in the U.S., we primarily have declared COVID to be done and gone. And I do serve on the Department of Public Health, and they're saying they're like 0 infections now and no deaths. However, there's going to probably be a resurgence coming up. I most recently got a text message from CVS saying that a new batch of COVID vaccinations have been open up, and I could schedule and come get one. In addition to that, I just found out that China is expecting a new wave of COVID that will hit 65 million cases a week. And they are rushing now to bolster their vaccine arsenal to target the later Omicron variant, which is called XBB. And it's been fueling a resurgence in cases across China since late April. And it is expected to result in 40 million infections a week by the end of May.
Give me some good news.
Well, the good news, like I said, here in the U.S., infections are very low. We don't have many people that are dying of it, and people have kind of built up some type of herd immunity to it. However, you just can't let your guard down. So it's a word to the wise. That's all.
Yeah, I hear you. It doesn't hurt to be careful.
Yes. But, Thom, I will tell you, though, first there was Dwayne Wade. Now there's a guy named David Jolly. He's a former Republican Florida representative.
Right.
And he has said that he's considering moving out of his home state of Florida because of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis' conservative policies. And he had a quote over the weekend. He said, "It's in the air, it's everywhere, it's amazing," said Florida native who disagrees with the governor's policies. It's between neighbors. It's when you go out to restaurants. It's when you go to school. You're on one side or the other, and people know it.
And it's very unfortunate to me because it's really unnecessary. It's all about one person running for a political office, and it isn't about Florida. To me, that's my opinion. I see David Jolly on from time to time, and he is a Republican guy, but he is a guy that is he doesn't just favor one side. He sort of looks at things as a whole. And so I think it's unfortunate that he feels that way. And the same with Wade, because he has a trans child.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I think this is how DeSantis has decided he needs to run to win. And we'll see how that works out.
Yeah. Well, the NAACP issued a travel advisory warning for people of color coming to Florida. That's got to be a first. It's just, I don't know. I've never seen the NCAA do that, here in the U.S. And it's interesting to see that, but they're saying that Florida is openly hostile towards African-American, people of color, LGBTQ plus individuals, and says before traveling to Florida, please understand the state of Florida devalues and marginalizes the contributions of and the challenges faced by African-Americans and other communities of color.
And again, I imagine there'll be a lot of suits filed over this thing. And of course, he's got his battle going with Disney. I don't know who advised him, but I just don't see that as a winning formula.
Yeah. It's like he's trying to out-Trump Trump.
Right. Because he's afraid to attack Trump. He's afraid to say anything about Trump. Because Trump fights dirty, and Trump will throw one of those low balls at him, and he won't know. Trump will talk about your wife, your children. He doesn't. So he said, "I'm not going to talk about Trump. I'm going to go after black folks and the gay folks and stir that up." So I don't know. It's funny. Is Barbara, you around?
I am here, Tom. Barely, but I'm here.
Yeah, okay. Well, we're sorry that you're not doing well.
Thank you.
Uh, you got anything you want to talk about this morning?
Yeah, I do, Tom. I want to say again, happy birthday to my sister Lori Wallace, who celebrated her 60th birthday on Sunday. And she had a big celebration, um, and rightly so. I mean, for those that don't know our story, there were 6 children in our family, and Lori is the youngest of all of us. And when she was 23 years old, she was diagnosed with lupus, but she became severely ill, had been perfectly fine, became really ill, spent months in the hospital. And basically, the doctors told us she had 2 months to live. And she's still here today. And of course, 3 of our siblings have passed away, they're deceased. And so, birthdays are really a big deal for us and for our family. So, again, happy birthday, Lori.
Happy birthday, Lori.
Yes.
Happy birthday, Lori.
Yeah. And I want to say congratulations to my cousin Jackie Cleveland on her retirement. She retired yesterday from Dodge Elementary School in Mobile. So happy retirement to Jackie. And also want to say happy Memorial Day to everyone. Memorial Day is coming up on Monday. It's hard to believe that we're already basically in the month of June. Seems like we just celebrated Christmas last week. So, but happy Memorial Day to everyone.
Okay. Either one of you guys watch any of the women's softball this weekend? I got kind of hooked on that softball, man.
I watched it. Yeah, I watch it. I will admit I watch it. I tune in. It's they play with such passion, and
they do. They do.
And such heart, and it's so funny to see them when they make a big play, how they really get into it.
Yeah.
But they have made some nice plays. They don't. And I don't mean this in any kind of way. They don't play softballs like girls, in other words. They go after it,
They play softball.
Yeah, they go after really playing softball, making over the head catches and going into the dugout, reaching over and grabbing the ball. So it's
and the one young woman for was it UCF? She threw 140 some pitches, man. God almighty, my arm would be falling off.
That's amazing. Yeah, I don't. You know who won the regionals? I didn't watch any of it. I tried to watch some highlights, but I didn't watch any of the actual games.
Well, I think Alabama skate by. They got by. They were in a very soft bracket, to be honest with you, from a softball perspective. Auburn missed out going on the super regionals because they lost to Clemson. They were seeded in that bracket, and Clemson beat them. They came back, beat Clemson, and then Clemson won the rubber match, so that eliminated Auburn from that. There was a big upset. The Raging Cajuns of Louisiana knocked off LSU, who was ranked number 10.
Wow.
And then there was another big upset. I can't remember, but
UCLA lost.
That's what I'm talking about.
UCLA, and I can't remember the team that beat them, but it was a huge upset.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because this was not a named team, and I can't remember who they were.
Right.
No. So I think it was a mid-major team, like Louisiana, the Raging Cajuns, or somewhere like that. But they knocked off UCLA, which was interesting. Of course, Oklahoma continued to roll.
Oklahoma is incredible.
Yeah,
you don't want to play Oklahoma.
They have a legacy when it comes to softball, that's for sure.
They do, man. They do. And I don't mean this in any way other than what I'm going to say is they have big girls, man. And I mean, those girls be hitting home runs like it ain't nothing. They got female judges,
Right.
Yeah, in other words, they're built like athletes, huh?
Yeah,
they are athletes.
They are. They are. Yeah. It's great.
Yeah.
So, Michael, you got anything else?
Well, I just that, for all the LA fans, and I'm sorry, but you have to look at this. Even though LA got swept, they showed up because they were a 7th place team for a reason.
Right.
And Denver was a 1st place team for a reason.
Right.
And for LA to to win the play-in game and do all that they've done and gone to the Western Conference Finals, that's pretty monumental. And Darvin Ham should be certainly toasted for that, because this was his first year coming in with LA and got him to the Western Conference Finals. So,
well, not just Darvin Ham, the general manager, Pelinka, because they rebuilt the team about
in the
2
middle
months
of the year.
ago.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah. So, but the Joker was just too much to handle.
And that one game when Murray would miss, I mean, he was incredible. I didn't know a story, but I think you and I were talking maybe a month and a half ago, and I said, man, I saw Denver play. Have you seen Denver play? Denver is incredible, you know? And so I started watching them from that point, and they are. It'll be interesting. So,
and did I understand that is this the first time Denver's made it to the finals?
Yeah.
Yes.
Wow.
First time.
Yeah,
and they had
amazing.
good teams over the years. Dan Issel and Alex English and those guys.
Right.
So yeah, I'm glad for them. Miami is just putting a spanking on Boston.
I text somebody the other day. I said Miami is running a Boston on Boston.
but Miami, I think the thing about both Miami and Denver is they play team ball. Yes. It's not about the one person, the two. It's just who's got the shot, who's open, and whatever. And then Denver's got some big boys, man. Whew.
Well, I will say this: Denver has some very skilled basketball players, and
I agree.
And they're very talented. Miami, they have good basketball players, but they have that dog mentality. And that's the difference. That's elevated, and it's so I don't know how I feel about this. I understand what they're trying to do, but TNT and Barkley and Shaq, every time they talk about Miami, they talk about the undrafted players on the team.
Yeah.
Okay, you made the point one time. That's fine. Get over it. Okay. But there are a lot of players out here walking around on the street that can hoop. They just didn't have the opportunity to go to a school where they could showcase their talents and get noticed. Okay. Right. So just because you didn't get drafted doesn't mean you can't play basketball. Right. So, I agree. And my hat's off to Miami. I really like the way those guys come in and play, and they play without consciousness. They just shoot it,
And if you go back to the whole undrafted thing, hell, they only got 2 rounds.
Right.
And they got 30 teams, so that's 60 guys get drafted. Yeah. There's a whole lot more than 60 people who can play basketball.
That's right.
Absolutely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, man. Okay.
The other thing I want to say about the Nuggets, though, is that, a lot of times when you get a big lead on a team and a team comes back, the team that had the lead sometime wither because they go, uh-oh, and they get psyched out. But that's not what happens with Denver. When LA comes storming back and get within 1 or even get a small lead, then it seems like Denver takes it to another level and just extends that,
And I mean, they won the first 2 games, but they were at home. So you can't, they had to win the first 2 games because had they not, it would have been tough on them.
Right.
But then they go to LA and just blow the Lakers out. And it's like, damn, these guys are for real. And I saw the interview with the Joker. The Joker is something else, I tell you. He is. I think he's the new hero on the block,
Yes.
Yeah.
And the Joker said they tried to compare him to Joel Embiid, and Joel Embiid got the MVP award. And the Joker said, no, he should have gotten it. He was the MVP this year, and I just thought that was classic. You know.
Yeah, the Joker's straight up. He's real. And I like it. But every time I see him play, I think about that song, "Slow Motion," baby, slow motion. He's moving in slow motion, man.
And then he'll move it slow, and then he just stops and leans back and shoot that thing.
And it's all in slow motion. That's what's so
Right.
deceptive because, a lot of players that have, especially in basketball, you have that quick twitch muscle, so you react real quick. So when you guarding somebody that moves in slow motion, it's hard to get in sync with them,
That's
because
right.
you're anticipating their moves and stuff. So that's just
right.
what's so funny about it.
And sometimes the Joker would shoot that air rocket. I mean, it'd go straight up in the air and fall through the hook. And Anthony Davis would just look at him like,
When you can't
because
stop it, all
Anthony
you can do
Davis
is
was
just look.
playing good defense. He
Yeah,
was playing
yeah.
as good a defense as you could play.
You can
Yeah.
control him.
Yeah. And he shoot it from behind his head like that.
Yeah.
That's what you call real talent right there.
I tell you what else I like about him. He gets that rebound and he takes off on the fast break. He's dribbling the ball on the fast break,
Yeah,
and
still
it's
in slow motion.
a slow fast break, Oh man! So either one of you got anything else that you want to talk about this morning?
No.
I see you wound up there, Michael, but no. Okay.
Now,
All right. Well,
let's get to the guests.
Let's move on. Sean's got a minute for us. Sean, are you out there somewhere?
Good morning to everyone joining in with us. My name is Shantia Jones, and this is Got a Minute. It's Tuesday, May 23rd, and on this day in 1921, Shuffle Along, the first major African-American hit musical, premieres on Broadway. Deeply in debt, the musical debuted at the 63rd Street Music Hall. The odds were stacked against the revue-style show written and performed by African Americans, but it ran for over a year, making it the first major Black American musical on the Great White Way. Shuffle Along was written by Noble Cecil and Eubie Blake, vaudeville veterans who worked together for over 6 decades, loosely based around the story of two crooked friends, Sam and Steve, each of whom runs for mayor of Jimmytown, USA, promising to make the other the police chief if he wins. Modern critics grapple with the question of whether Shuffle Along perpetuated racist tropes or presented the moment at which African Americans broke out of the confines of blackface minstrelsy. The answer may be both. In fact, even as they broke barriers by performing all Black show, the Black performers still wore blackface to avoid making white audiences uncomfortable. At the same time, the show featured a developed romance plot between two Black characters, something unheard of in the mainstream theater at that time. I give a round of applause to African Americans on Broadway. Now, before I go, Father's Day is quickly approaching. If you'd like to be featured on our special Tuesday with Thom episode for Father's Day, please submit a picture of you and your father and or father figure to Sean at bestgirl.com. That's Sean, SHAWN, at bestgirl, GURL.com. Thank you all for joining in. My name is Shantia Jones, and this has Got a Minute.
Thank you, Sean. That was great. Now, I'm going to have to ask you, Sean, did we get permission from the governor of Florida to talk about that Black history like you were talking? They've had to cut it out in the high school down there.
That's right.
So anyway, Hollywood has, let's get to our G-list guest. Hollywood has the A-list, and here on Tuesdays with Thom, we have the G-list. And our G-list guest today is A.P. Steadham, a graduate of the University of Alabama. He's a fixture at major national sporting events. He is the co-host, A.P. and Kelly As We See It. Legendary sports figures and personalities, a regular guest on a syndicated weekly 1-hour radio broadcast. He's a multimedia figure. That means he's in radio, TV, print, and the internet. He's in his second day of covering Alabama/Southeastern Conference football. He's reported on the Crimson Tide regular season games, conference championship bowls, 3 BCS national championships, and the college football players. Let's welcome AP Steadham. Good morning, AP.
Hey, good morning, Tom and Michael and Barbara. Thank you so much for having me.
How you doing, man?
I'm doing great. Yeah, I'm on the road here, traveling up to the an event up here at West Virginia Game Changers. They're trying to stop the use of opioids, and
Cool.
we're gonna the featured guest speaker is Roy Williams, the former basketball coach in North Carolina. So we'll be up to the Greenbrier today.
Good. So AP, now you're in a little bit of everywhere as far as sports goes.
Yes.
How'd that come about?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I don't know if you're familiar with Sonny Vaccaro, the ABCD basketball camp.
Basketball shoe guy, wasn't it?
Correct. Yeah. He used to have a basketball camp called ABCD at Fairleigh Dickinson University. And I made a call to somebody that I knew through the years, Kirk McNair, who was actually the sports information director for Coach Bryant in Alabama for some years. And he started Bama Magazine. And I reached out to him to say, if you get me a credential for that event, I'll cover it. And so he liked what I did, and that was my entrance into sport. And just about a week or so ago, I received a call from Sonny Vaccaro, and he wanted me to see that movie Air about the Michael Jordan signing with Nike. So it's come full circle. My first ever assignment, and then Sonny called me recently. So I got into sports, and the next thing you know, we're covering Alabama football and some basketball and anything kind of related to them, and then SEC events and going to the NFL draft and the Heisman Trophy ceremony and the Maxwell Award and Walter Camp functions and going to the Super Bowl and just covering all types of events. But that's how it all started. My initial entrance into sports.
Wow. Yeah, you said something, and I was going to ask you about. Michael, you got a question?
Well, yeah, let me jump into this because I was reading about, Alabama and Bear Bryant implemented the wishbone offense.
Yes.
What made it so unstoppable? Was it the fact that the options of where the ball was going, or was it the fact that you had to have certain types of players to run that wishbone effectively? And then the back half of that, how does that compare with the huddle up? Well, what hurry up, no huddle offense? Yeah.
Right.
RPOs.
Yeah. Right. There's some remnants of that, Michael, in today's game of the option, of course. But I think it was a simplified offense, but high risk, and you could get out on the edge. But they had to respect that fullback. You remember the fullback, right, Thom?
Yes.
You remember that position?
Yeah.
So Alabama had some good fullbacks at the time. But yeah, Coach Bryant, he was at a crossroads in his career. 2 6-game winning seasons, 69 and 70, and 3 weeks before they were to play USC, the mighty Trojans in Los Angeles Memorial Coliseum on a Friday evening. He came into the room and told his players, we're going to sink or swim with this triple option offense. I mean, I think you can use all types of players, but you need people who are committed to blocking. The backs have to block as well for each other. So that's really important. And then you have to have a quarterback that it's magical with his footwork and his ball handling ability. And you have to make those very quick reads and be precise with that pitch. And you're going to fumble the ball. I remember Oklahoma running that. I think one game against Vanderbilt, who they escaped with, believe it or not, Nashville had about 10 fumbles in the game, but they still won. But it was a high-powered offense, and the defense, it took them a while to catch up to that triple option. They surprised the University of Southern California that evening when they ran that triple option, because they came out in warmups with their old style pro 2-set back offense. So they even went up and told the radio people, don't even discuss it during the warmups. We don't even want to let anybody know. So they had secret practices when they had the Sky Riders tour. Thom, maybe you remember all the journalists would fly around to the different SEC schools, and when they were invited that day, they ran the two back set like they always did in the past. So the night or two before they went out to Los Angeles, Coach Bryant opened it up to the students, and he says, "Well, I don't think they'll say anything because they want their classmates to win the ball game." So he let the students come in and watch, and it was kind of a cool moment.
It was particularly hard on linebackers. I remember us playing them, and the linebackers trying to figure out who's got the ball, and John Hannah's knocking him on his back.
Right? Yeah, you try to do both of those things. Just one in and of itself was difficult. Correct?
Yeah, it was great. And then Alabama had a great wishbone. Oklahoma had creme de la creme wishbone
Right.
because they were so big.
Yeah, they were big. Yeah. And they probably had the most speed. They probably had the most speed at that time, right, Thom?
They did. So I want to go back to, you talked about Air. So have you seen it?
Yeah, I did. I went to see it. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. Matt Damon played Sonny Vaccaro, and then Ben Affleck played Phil Knight, and Viola Davis played Mrs. Jordan, Michael Jordan's mother.
Okay, and Michael Jordan apparently, when they got his permission to do the film, he said, "Well, you have to make Viola Davis my mother in the film." So that was great. Yeah, I haven't seen it. I'll have to go see it. See how it comes out. Barbara, you got a question?
I do. AP, good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning.
I just want to ask you about your athletic career. Have you played sports in the past, and where did you get started, if so?
Oh, yeah. I played some football when I was like 10 to 12 years old, and I played quarterback and wide receiver. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed playing defense too, but my primary sport was basketball. I played high school basketball. My teammate was a McDonald's All-American, Corny Thompson. He became the captain of the University of Connecticut, and he played for the Dallas Mavericks for a couple of years, and then he went out to Europe for 10 or 12 years. So, and then my little league teammate was Phil Murphy. He played at South Carolina State, and he played for the Rams for 2 or 3 years as well. So I was around some greatness, and I had fun being teammates with them. But yeah, basketball was my primary sport. But I loved college football since I was little, and I watched SEC 50 years now or so, 50 years plus, and it's all in my head.
That's great.
So AP,
yes.
After all these years, and you and I can go back to Alabama playing at Legion Field, and how I know Auburn wants to play in Auburn and Alabama wants to play, but when they played at Legion Field, it was a whole different thing. That was the Iron Bowl.
That was it.
It was incredibly special, and the whole town, they just took over Birmingham. And it was just great. So, how have things changed in your opinion? How has college football itself changed over the years?
Right. Well, everything is monetized now. I mean, from the athletic standpoint, they're trying to, pay all these coaches millions and millions of dollars. I mean, Thom, did you ever think you'd see a coordinator making $2 million? No. Not even the head coach. Not even the head coach. So
I never. Go ahead.
No, just say I never thought I'd see that type of. What do they call it? Two comma. He's a 2 comma coach, right?
Yeah.
so the money has changed some things, but this is the real world now. People have been trying to be paid for a very long time. And I know the first thing that the coaches were saying, they were objecting to, well, we're going to have a problem in the locker room. Well, when you play pro ball, the quarterback's going to make more money. That's real life. So, and if you're in college football, if the quarterback's probably going to make the most money, the left guard, unless he has some type of special brand or personality, he's not going to make as much money. So you wanted the real world. This is the real world. So I think, and all these athletes, they're phenomenal. They're so big and so fast. And now you have the transfer portal where it's really like pro ball, except you don't have the cap. The money is wide open. They probably need to do something along those lines. When you have pro ball, you have a cap. So, but now it's just a race to pay everybody more money. And that's the first question when they're being recruited. What is my NIL deal? Not anymore the playing time. That was the top question, right? Now it's what is my NIL deal?
Yeah. Well, you know what my NIL deal was? $15 a month.
That laundry money, right?
We'd go over there one day and get our laundry check. $15, man. That was it.
We were happy to get that.
That's right. Oh, so who's got a question? Michael, Barbara?
Well, AP, since we're talking about, the way things are in college athletics now and this transfer portal, it's kind of like a team can go from the outhouse to the penthouse
Oh.
in one season of the transfer portal.
That's it.
But the flip side of it is you always having to try to recruit your own players that you already have on board to keep them, because any business can't sustain itself if you have more people going out the back door that's coming in.
Right.
So,
some of them you're pushing out the back door. Some of them you're trying to hold on to them. but you're right. You're exactly right. But I always tell people, if a rule changes, whoever applies the rule effectively manages that situation, they will be successful. There's nothing that you can do, because the NCAA, we all know, is the member institutions. With the FBS top level football, it's about 131 schools, I believe it is. So you have to manage that. You have to have good leadership, and that's the way you can thrive. But it's always changing, but you have to adapt. I mean, we all know that if you don't adapt, you perish. And so that's the situation. There's nothing that could be done. You have to move forward.
Well, speaking of rule changes, since you brought it up, I remember when Mr. Nick Saban wanted to change the rules for the hurry up, no huddle offense. And Auburn brought in Cam and Nick Marshall, and
Right.
he was spanking that butt a little bit.
Oh,
He
yes,
wanted to make
absolutely.
that rule change.
Absolutely. Here's something to know about Nick Saban. If he is complaining about a rule change, he is the one behind the scenes is trying to adapt to that rule. And then he ends up being successful. I mean, he mentioned something about recruiting and NILs. I mean, he was voicing that displeasure with Jimbo Fisher buying players. Well, you can believe that he's trying to get more money from his booster so he can buy players. So you just remember that every time he's complaining, he's behind the scenes trying to catch up or adapt. That's the way he operates. Yeah.
Yeah, you're
How much
longer
longer do you think he'll go?
Well, his wife, Terry, she has a voice. I can tell you that, the direction of his career. And I think he'd probably have 5 good years left. He really doesn't have too many hobbies. I think she had to force him to take this recent trip overseas to Italy, but he enjoys football so much, and he'll be 72 Halloween. But he's been playing basketball at lunchtime. I'm not sure if he still does that for years. So to be playing all through your 60s basketball for lunchtime, that's pretty impressive in and of itself.
Yeah.
So I just think he likes football too much, and he likes the associations. He likes recruiting. Some people don't like it. He does.
Right.
Yeah, I get that impression. Barbara?
Yeah, and AP and covering Alabama football over the past 2 decades, what has been your most favorite moment or memory of games?
Maybe the first time they played in the championship, the game was in the Rose Bowl. It wasn't the Rose Bowl game, but to play out in Pasadena again, because that's in the Alabama fight song, "We'll win the Rose Bowl again." That was kind of a cool moment. And to play against the University of Texas, who's another team I always tried to follow when I was young. And I think before the game, Audra McDonald sang. So I love that, because I love Audra McDonald. And, she sang. And so that was really cool for me to go out to the Rose Bowl, because you've heard about it your whole life. And there was no reason. It was a funny story. There was no reason for the Rose Bowl people ever to visit Alabama, because they couldn't participate in the Rose Bowl game. But once they had the BCS and everything, they visited Tuscaloosa. I got a chance to meet with them. And they invited me to the Rose Bowl game. So I went out there to see Ohio State play Oregon. And when this is kind of a funny story talking about the Jordan movie. I was looking for my seat on the board, and Oregon was in the game. So I just kind of glanced to my right, and there's Phil Knight. He's looking for his seat. So that's the first time I met him. I met him 3 times, twice by accident.
Great.
So they invited me to that game. I went to the parade, which was a big thrill, because I love all the bands and pageantry. And they set me next to the NBC booth, and I just walked down the hill for the game. And then the next day we had the press conference at Disney. So when I was out there, they introduced me to like 35 people from the Rose Bowl. And all the other Alabama media. Was funny. They said, "How did you get to meet so many people?" I said, "Well, I spoke to them in Tuscaloosa. What were you doing when they were there with their jackets on?"
Right. That's right.
So every year, yeah. So when I go out there, I visit the past president, Dave Davis. We have lunch in Pasadena many times, and it's been a long-standing relationship. So I tell people all the time, you have to circulate, as my daddy would say, and meet people, and you never can tell, the common interests that you have when you get into discussion.
Right.
One of the things I think that's interesting about Alabama football now is, Alabama was never really known for producing pro quarterbacks.
No,
And
not really.
these last
couple of them,
3-4 years, they've produced the best quarterbacks. And the kid from Alabama just went number 1 in the draft. And so
yes,
I think the thing that Nick Saban adjusts, he's shown amazing ability to adjust to the game.
Yeah, that makes the greatness. When you speak about the coaches, Thom, it's always the great ones can adjust. Coach Bryant, looking back, won with defense, passing, and then that wishbone his last 12 years, 3 more national titles. But Nick Saban, he's done the same thing. He's more of a play action power type game. And now he had Bryce Young and some of these other quarterbacks with the, 4 number 1 draft choices at the wide receiver position. Alabama people got spoiled. I mean, anybody would get spoiled with 4 number 1 draft choices at the wide receiver positions. I don't know if you'll ever see that again at Alabama. But and it was funny because Bryce Young, we're speaking about Pasadena. He's from Pasadena, playing for Alabama.
Right.
AP, you just said something. You said the great coaches adapt. So I guess you're saying Gus Malzahn never will be a great coach, huh?
Well, he had his moments though. He had his moments against Alabama. He beat him. What? He was 3-5, I think, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
He was.
So even in his system, which was, I think it's a pretty simplistic system, but I noticed the one thing about his offense is he has a lot of people in front of the ball carrier, right? He would pull a lot of people in that system. And then his quarterbacks, he had Nick Marshall there, who was super athlete, and he devised a way to simplify it. So in Alabama did this with Jalen Hurts originally. They're looking to one side of the field to see if someone's open. If not, you're tucking the ball and run or throw it out of bounds. So every good coach, they utilize their talent and they maximize the best they can. So I like coaches who have that versatility.
Yeah. Well, again, you didn't describe Gus Malzahn, but that's another talk. But
Michael's got a thing about Gus.
Yeah, Michael doesn't like Gus.
Not one of my favorite coaches.
I understand.
He overpromised and underdelivered. Okay.
Yeah, that's not a good philosophy. I wouldn't recommend it.
Let me ask you this. Let's bring it back to this other side. There's always this talk about the greatest rivalries and what.
Yes.
And so you've been around, you've seen a lot.
Right.
And they always want to compare Ohio State, Michigan to the Iron Bowl, Auburn, Alabama.
Yeah.
I want to hear from your side, but let me just first say, I don't really think it's that close because they don't, to me, I don't see the excitement between Ohio State and Michigan that I see between Auburn and Alabama. But let me hear what you say, because, certain writers say it's Michigan and Ohio State. Other people say Auburn and Alabama. So talk to me.
I would say, the Michigan-Ohio State rivalry, I think the Michigan probably gets more players from Ohio to come up to Ann Arbor than the other way, I think. I don't think you see too many players out of Detroit playing for Ohio State, but you do see players from Ohio playing. And it's 2 different states, right? So you don't see those people every day. Whereas Auburn, Alabama, it might be in the same house. Right? So and the best way I've ever seen it described is Gene Stones. They asked him about that rivalry, and he said, "Well, I went to Texas A&M. We play University of Texas. So after 3 weeks after the game, we discussing what happened possibly. But Alabama, Auburn, it'll be January 28th, May 3rd, June 15th." July the 21st. I mean, they're talking about it every day. So he said that was the extent of the rivalry. It was just deeper and more passion.
And I think I remember when it was a huge deal in recruiting.
Yes.
Which of the 2 schools signed more of the recruits from the state of Alabama?
Correct.
And now that's not even that big, even a factor, really.
No.
Right.
No, nobody mentions it. Yeah, nobody even mentions that, Thom. That's a good point. They don't even discuss that anymore. It's not even a topic. But it was years ago. But Alabama now, and they're getting people from 50 states that brand is seen all over it's global now. And then Auburn, Auburn would always get the players from Georgia, and they'd go over to Louisiana once in a while, get some players in Florida. They'd be Central Florida, quite a few. That was their fertile recruiting ground for them. But they're getting players from different parts of the country now. So, that SEC brand is so strong.
It is.
I mean, they have their own network, and that saying that they have, it just means more. And so the SEC, I mean, think about it. You have all these quarterbacks. They're from, at one time they had, I think it was 3 USC quarterbacks or something transferred to the SEC. And then you have Bo Nix, he transferred to Oregon.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Jalen Hurts transferred to Oklahoma.
Transferred to Oklahoma.
Almost
so
won in the Super Bowl this year.
Right. So even though you might play in the SEC, if you're thinking about transferring, they're down here looking for ball players because they know they competed against some of the best, the talented players, and it's a fast league, the fastest league overall. The big lineman that can move separates SEC. There's other places, Ohio State, they have good players, Michigan, USC, Oklahoma, Texas, whatever. But overall, the SEC, they're so big and fast up front.
Yeah.
So
when
they're
they
saying
get to bigger, faster, stronger is for real then. Bigger, faster, stronger is for real.
Yeah, that's a reality in the SEC. Yeah, if you're a coach and if you fall behind in that area, it is tough because your quarterback's running for their life.
Mm-hmm.
When you get to that Final Four at the end of the year,
yes,
there's always one team, maybe even 2 teams that just don't fit. They're just not up to the level of the 2 SEC teams, which, lately has been Alabama and Georgia.
Right.
It's tough. So I gotta go ahead.
No, I was going to say, Tom, can you explain this to me? How Michigan beats Ohio State by about 3 touchdowns. TCU puts 50 points on Michigan. Ohio State comes to Atlanta, almost wins the game in Georgia. And then Georgia just annihilates TCU. There's no transitive property in college football, I tell people.
Right.
No, it's not. No, it's not. It's just interesting. So let me ask you about the Wishbone Boys and that film you guys are producing.
Yeah, we had a premiere a couple years ago in Tuscaloosa, and we're trying to get it on TV. We've had discussions with CBS Sports Network. We're trying to seek out some sponsors, but we took every offensive star from that 12-year era of 71 to 82. That was Coach Bryant's last 12 years. That was 25 years. And so we had, Johnny Musso and Joe LeBou and Steve Bisceglia. That was the first Wishbone backfield with Terry Davis at quarterback. We had the Rutledge brothers, that's the only brother situation. They both started at Alabama, won a national championship, wore number 11. That's the only time that ever happened in college football. Probably will ever happen, I guess. And, Johnny Davis and Ozzie Newsome and John Hannon, Dwight Stevenson, and, Gene Stallings. We had Mark Tyson, who's Coach Bryant's grandson. We had, I don't know if you're familiar, Tom, you're familiar with Celia Ward, the actress, Celia?
Yes.
So Celia was the homecoming queen and cheerleader at Alabama. She's in our film. And so we feel that we put something together that no one could duplicate. Wilbur Jackson's in the film, and we got all these great, outstanding Alabama offensive performers. And Bill Oliver was in the film, of course, because he had to defend it every day in practice as a defensive coordinator at Alabama. So we had a lot of fun making the movie. It took us a while to get everybody coordinated, but we had all the cooperation. No one denied us an interview, and so we were very fortunate. And people could go to our website, the Wishbone Boys. You could see the trailer, and under the news tab, you'll see clips of the interviews. But we did have a lot of fun at the premiere, and we're looking to get it on TV somehow, some way.
And AP, I understand it took 10 years. And it was 10 years in the making. What happened? What took so long?
Yeah, well, to get everybody together, they're all parts of the country now, and so that's just took us a while to coordinate those things. And now we're just really, these last bunch of years, we're trying to figure out how to get it on television. But we did put out a DVD for people who wanted to watch it as well. 62 minutes. And we tried to go over as much as we can about the era. And really, there was a confluence of, Alabama implemented that wishbone, and you had the African Americans coming on board at Alabama. Wilbur Jackson was a sophomore that year. He was the backup to Johnny Musso, the All-American, two-time All-American. And then Wilbur went on to become a great player at Alabama as well. But so I don't think you have the wishbone success at Alabama without the integration of the football program.
All right.
Yeah, we had Coach Kroom on maybe a
Sylvester.
month ago. Yeah, great guy. And, had some really good stories about, and you're right. And I guess that's something we shouldn't skim over, because actually I was a part of it as well. But
yes,
when you talk about the wishbone, but it was the introduction of the black athlete into the Southeastern Conference around 1970 or whatever. Wilbur and them were at Alabama, and James and I were at Auburn.
You at Auburn,
and,
correct?
It was just a different time.
It's hard to believe it was in our lifetime, Thom.
Yeah, it
right?
is. Yeah, it
is. I tell people that they look at me kind of cross-eyed. I say, well, it's in my lifetime.
You're right. I got it. So I know I know Alabama's your thing. What do you think about
I went
Coach?
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I went to school at Alabama, but I had my cousins went to Auburn, a lot of them, so I knew about Auburn since I was young. Terry Beasley and Pat Sullivan, and I remember you number 44, right?
49.
49. There we go.
Yeah.
Who was 44 on your Cedric, right?
McIntyre.
Cedric, right? Yeah. 49, right? And you played against Alabama. You both were 1 and 2 or something, right? Was it 73 or when was that?
We played in
74, 73,
and 4. 72,
right?
3
yeah.
and 4. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead. I interrupted you.
No, I was just going to ask you. So what do you
About
think about
coach.
Coach Freeze at Auburn?
Right. Coach Freeze, he has the ability to improve the quarterback. He took Malik Willis over there to Liberty and did a good job with him. He was drafted by Tennessee Titans. So I think you'll see improved quarterback play. And now they have the transfer from Michigan State, Peyton Thorne, who 2 years ago threw for 27 touchdowns on a 10-2 or 11-2 team, I think it was. And then last year they didn't fare as well. 5-7, he only threw 16 touchdowns. But obviously when you don't win as many games, it's the entire team. But I think he'll do a good job with the quarterback. He'll probably improve Robbie Ashford, who can run with the wind. Robbie's fast. He's got to get his completion percentage up. But Hugh Freeze is a good offensive coach, and he can recruit. And we know that Auburn, Thom, the last half a dozen years on the offensive line, they've just been shorthanded. And this is a difficult league when you don't have an offensive line, because we know if you have a good offensive line, if nothing else, you move the ball and keep it away from the other team. That's part of your defense.
Right. That's right.
So, that's a huge part of your football team. I always look at the offensive line because that's a unit. It's like a chorus line. Have to be in step. And then the secondary, the last line of defense, they have to be in unison. That's really important, and that takes some time.
Mm-hmm.
Well, everything y'all say about Auburn football tells you why I don't like Gus Malzahn. So you just continue to make my case. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I want to, AP, let me ask you this.
Yes.
What do you think about all this realignment when it comes to the conferences?
Yeah.
We have Texas and Oklahoma coming. And then just recently, there's talk that Clemson, Miami, North Carolina, maybe Florida State may want to join the SEC. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, well, it's, show me the money, follow the money in this situation, right? They're all the college presidents. They're beholden to alumni and their fans to, monetize the situation the best way they can. And if some league offers them X amount of dollars, just like when they have the bidding now for the championship. It's all based on the bidding, and I tell people all the time, it's 1 cent more, that's where they're going. It's follow the money. There's no allegiance anymore, no loyalty. I don't care if you've been in the same room with the presidents for years. He might say one thing to your face, and the next thing you know, you're reading about in the paper, we're leaving the conference.
Right.
Yeah.
That's
so
what it is.
AP, I think next week is the conference meeting or coaches meeting or
Spring,
whatever?
the spring meeting. Yes, the spring meeting.
Okay.
Will start on the Tuesday after Memorial Day in Destin, Florida, and they'll have the presidents, the head football coaches, head basketball coaches, head women's basketball coaches, the athletic directors, the networks, the bowl people, Rose Bowl, Cotton Bowl, Sugar Bowl, Fiesta Bowl, Peach Bowl, Liberty Bowl, and so forth. And they'll have some of the sponsors down there, and anybody else there'll be some agents down there. So it's a lot of fun. We have a party at a pool right on the beach on Tuesday evening. So that's fun. And I try to have fun every day ending in Y. And so we'll be down there, there'll be meeting, and then and then, they have the meetings, then they'll come out of the meetings and we'll get a chance to speak to them, and we'll see them roaming around the hotel. Those who are available or want to speak to the media, maybe they'll have some side interviews. So I really enjoy that SEC spring meetings as opposed to the SEC media days, which this year for the first time I think will be held in Nashville mid-July. Those are so structured. There's not any leeway to have a sidebar with the coaches and things. It's so too structured.
All right.
Barbara, Michael, you got anything else for AP?
I was just going to ask you about all the Hall of Fames that you get a chance to attend and how
Right.
that came about.
Yeah, I have some friends and they would reach out to me. They said, "Hey, would you mind helping me to reach this Hall of Fame?" And really that's how I kind of got involved with the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, the Pro Football Hall of Fame. I'll tell you a quick Jim Brown story. I was at Canton,
Okay.
Ohio for the Kenny Stabler induction. I had written 3 stories to try to help them to talking to players about Kenny. And I wrote a story, unbeknownst to me, it was about the Pittsburgh Steelers vouching for Kenny Stabler to be in the Hall of Fame. And the next thing I know, the Pittsburgh newspaper took my story, put it on the front page of the sports page, because
Wow.
as you know, the Pittsburgh and Oakland, that was a fierce rivalry
That's right.
that reached the court level, right? Some
Right.
things going back and forth. So, I got involved trying to help Kenny Stabler, and it's kind of a bittersweet moment. He passed away in July, and then in August, he was announced through the senior committee that he would be their representative. And once you reach that portion of the senior committee, then you still have to have the 80% of the, say, 40 plus votes. But usually they're not going to turn down somebody because they only have 1 or 2 candidates coming from that selection committee. So once you reach that, it's automatic because they vote on that Saturday prior to the Super Bowl in the Super Bowl city. So that's how I kind of got involved. And it's been a lot of fun. Met so many interesting sports figures and contributors. And so every year I try to attend the Alabama Sports Hall of Fame, and time to time I'll go to Canton, Ohio for those events as well. And Mobile has a Sports Hall of Fame. And so
Right.
I've been involved with that as well. But it's been a lot of fun.
You mentioned Jim Brown. Did you?
Yeah, my story. So I'm out there at the hotel in Canton, Ohio, and I'm interviewing Earl Campbell. He wanted me to interview him about Kenny. So we're in a room, and Earl's signing footballs at a table, and Earl has a walker now. And so all of a sudden we hear this booming voice, and it's just a small hallway, like maybe 6 feet wide. And we hear this voice, "Earl." And he said, "Hey," and he said, "This is Jim. I'm walking by, but I can't come in, but I just wanted to tell you hello." And it was Jim Brown in the hallway going by. He wanted to say hello to Earl Campbell. He was on his walker as well.
Wow.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah, I looked out the door. There he was.
All-American in lacrosse, probably one of the best lacrosse players ever. And
Wow.
just amazing. And,
Oh, yeah.
And then when he was working on the Dirty Dozen film and the production ran over, and I forget the owner.
Art Modell. Art Modell.
Art Modell said, "Well, I'm going to fine you every day if you don't come." He
Yeah,
said,
$100
"Okay,
a day.
I quit."
Yeah. So that's fine. Here's my answer. Yeah,
Right.
he did so much in football. Yeah, that was kind of short-sighted. I would say it's short-sighted.
Yeah.
Something could have been.
It was a different
Workout.
time.
Yeah. No.
Okay, AP, you got anything else you want to talk to us about this morning?
Just one other thing. We're going to have a Wishbone Boys golf tournament on that first Thursday in November at Bent Brook, the Bent Brook course in Bessemer, Alabama. So you can look on our website, the Wishbone Boys, for people who want to play golf. I mean, I don't play golf. They let me ride in the cart. That's it. That's the extent of my golf.
Okay, and when is it? When is it?
Oh, it'll be that first Thursday in November. I think it's November 2nd. November 2nd,
Okay.
Bessemer, Alabama. Yeah,
Okay,
so you get a
sounds
chance to meet a
good.
lot of those Wishbone boys.
Well,
Yeah.
if you'll drop me something, we'll promote it a little bit right before you guys actually have it.
Okay. Hey, I just want to tell you, Tom and Michael and Barbara, it's been a thrill to be on the show, and I really appreciate it. And we have our weekly show, AP and Kelly, as we see it, capital S, capital E, capital C, Southeastern Conference. But we have a lot of, and Tom, we'll get you on the show like I always do to be, during the football season, whatever. We'll discuss some
Right.
Auburn football, and that'll be a lot of fun
Okay.
as usual. That unscripted drama.
Good to talk to you, man.
Thank you.
Keep
Thank
doing
you so
what
much.
you're doing.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you,
Yeah.
AP. We
Bye-bye.
appreciate it. So my closing commentary for today is, where does politics and business intersect? So we know of the Florida governor and his meddling and threats to Disney and anybody that wants to talk about Black history. So I guess I can't talk about myself since I am Black history in a lot of ways. But now Governor Greg Gianforte of Montana has signed a bill banning the TikTok app from that state. The legislation seeks to cut off access by targeting mobile app stores like the Apple Store and Google Play and prevent them from offering TikTok in the state of Montana. Ban is set to take effect January 1st, but is already facing a legal challenge. The video has come under scrutiny because of its Chinese ownership. And that is how I see it on this May 23rd in the year 2023. That's our show for today. Thank the audience. We appreciate you very much. Thank G-List guest AP Steadham. AP, you were just wonderful. Thank our sponsor, Best Girl Inc. Thank Barbara, Sean, and Joyce. And that's it for this Tuesday, May the 23rd. Remember, enjoy yourself. Make every day count. Stay safe. Peace.